At first, this situation between Claressa Shields and Papoose looked like just another celebrity fallout, but the deeper you look, the more it starts to feel like something far more calculated. Claressa Shields is now being accused of making serious claims about money, allegedly saying that Papoose took over $100,000 from her. But instead of staying silent, Papoose immediately flipped the narrative, bringing in a completely different accusation that changes how people are viewing this entire situation. And that is where things begin to spiral. Because the moment 50 Cent stepped into this, everything shifted from a private issue to a full public spectacle. Known for inserting himself into ongoing drama, 50 Cent did not just comment, he added fuel. Suddenly, clips started resurfacing, alleged messages began circulating, and moments that once seemed normal were now being reinterpreted as evidence. A simple Christmas appearance turned into something people are calling suspicious. Studio footage started raising questions. And just like that, the internet began building its own version of the story. But what really complicated things was the introduction of another name, Maserati Bud. Once Papoose's own friend, Maserati Bud being pulled into this situation completely changed the tone.
Spare you, Clarissa. Even when motherfucking Geisha 305 put that shit out there.
Now, this was no longer just about Claressa Shields and Papoose arguing, it became a question of loyalty, betrayal, and timing. Social media immediately split into two sides. Some people are convinced that Claressa Shields crossed a line behind the scenes. Others are questioning whether this entire narrative is being pushed to damage her image at the worst possible moment. And that is where things stop being simple. Because now, beyond the cheating allegations, there are also claims from Claressa Shields suggesting that Papoose may have been using her financially. That one accusation alone shifts the entire dynamic of the story. What once looked like a messy breakup now starts to feel like a battle over control, reputation, and public perception. So the real question is no longer just who cheated. It becomes, who is telling the truth, and who is shaping the story? Because when you step back and look at everything, the timing, the leaks, the involvement of 50 Cent, and the sudden appearance of Maserati Bud in the middle of it all, it starts to feel like there is more happening behind the scenes than what is being shown on the surface. And that is exactly why this situation is getting harder to ignore. What happened next is where this situation completely lost control, because now it was not just accusations anymore, it turned into a public war. Instead of backing down, Papoose decided to respond in a way that matched the energy. He posted his own AI-generated clip targeting 50 Cent. And it was clearly meant to provoke. But this was not just about the video, it was the message behind it. Papoose was essentially calling 50 Cent out, telling him to stop deflecting and face the accusations being thrown at him. It was direct, it was personal, and it was designed to hit where it hurts. And if there is one thing people already know about 50 Cent, it is that he does not ignore things like that. Especially when someone tries to question his image. So instead of de-escalating, 50 Cent did what he always does, he went even lower. And this time, he did not just respond to Papoose, he pulled Claressa Shields directly into the line of fire. In a move that instantly grabbed attention, 50 Cent publicly suggested that Claressa had been involved with Maserati Bud.
Make God popular, make God popular.
Even claiming that he had receipts to prove it. Now that single word, receipts, completely changed the temperature online. Because when 50 Cent says he has proof, people listen, whether it is real or not. Within minutes, the internet started reacting. Some people believed this was the moment everything would be exposed. Others immediately questioned whether this was just another calculated attempt to embarrass someone publicly. But regardless of which side people were on, one thing was clear, the narrative was no longer under control. But Claressa Shields did not stay silent. She came out strongly, shutting down the allegations and reframing the entire situation. According to her, this did not start because of any hidden relationship or secret betrayal. She claims it began when 50 Cent disrespected her and Papoose without any real reason, turning what should have been a private issue into a public spectacle. And instead of handling things through music or direct confrontation, she accused him of creating a false narrative, one that paints her as someone she says she has never been. No relationship. No involvement. No truth to the claims. And she did not stop there. Claressa Shields made it clear that she is considering legal action, arguing that when someone with 50 Cent's level of influence spreads accusations like this, it does not just stay online, it damages reputations in real life. So now, this situation is no longer just about drama or social media back and forth. It is starting to move into something far more serious. Because once words like lawsuit, receipts, and false narrative enter the conversation, this stops being entertainment, and starts becoming a battle over truth, influence, and control of the story. And just when it seemed like things could not get any more intense, Claressa Shields decided to push back even harder. She made it clear that this was no longer just internet drama for her, this was about reputation, influence, and accountability. Calling out Curtis Jackson directly, she pointed to the power of his platform, emphasizing that when someone with millions of followers spreads a narrative, it does not stay as entertainment. It becomes something people believe. And according to her, every blog, every repost, and every caption being circulated could now potentially become part of a legal case. But before things could settle, another twist dropped. Because 50 Cent did not just claim he had receipts, he started teasing them. And almost immediately after, Maserati Bud entered the spotlight in a way that changed the tone again. A video surfaced showing him and Claressa Shields together during Christmas, laughing, partying, and looking comfortable. Too comfortable, at least according to the internet. And that is when the speculation exploded. Suddenly, people were no longer asking if something happened, they were asking when. Social media ran with it, turning a single clip into a full narrative. But Claressa Shields did not back down. She addressed it head-on, insisting that just because she spent time with Maserati Bud does not mean there was anything romantic or inappropriate going on.
Come on, cause I didn't even want to have to do this, but Maserati Bud, ever since I met this fool.
Still, the story refused to slow down. Because Maserati Bud decided to speak. Going live, he began sharing his side, and it was not subtle. He hinted at conversations, at emotions, even at moments that suggested things were not as innocent as Claressa claimed. Text messages were brought into the conversation, and from the way he presented them, it painted a picture of tension, jealousy, and blurred boundaries. And this is where things started getting messy in a different way. Because now, it was not just about what happened, it was about how it looked. Maserati Bud even went as far as suggesting that the only reason things did not fully progress between them had more to do with lifestyle differences than lack of interest. And whether people believed him or not, that claim alone was enough to shift public perception. Meanwhile, 50 Cent continued applying pressure. Another clip surfaced, this time from a studio setting, showing Claressa Shields and Maserati Bud together again. And even though the footage itself did not confirm anything directly, the timing of it made everything feel more suspicious in the eyes of viewers. At this point, Claressa realized something important. She was losing control of the narrative. So she attempted to regain it by releasing her own messages, texts that were meant to clear her name and provide context. But instead of shutting things down, those messages seemed to raise even more questions. Some fans began interpreting them differently, suggesting that even if nothing physical happened, there may have been emotional lines being crossed. And then another layer quietly added fuel to the fire. Because while all of this was unfolding, Papoose was reportedly spending Christmas with Remy Ma, his ex. And given the history and tension between Remy Ma and Claressa Shields, that detail did not go unnoticed. In fact, for many people watching this unfold, it started to look less like coincidence, and more like a chain reaction. And that is when the entire situation shifted again. Because now, it was no longer just about allegations. It became a web of timing, emotions, reactions, and unanswered questions, where every move from one side seemed to trigger a response from the other. And the deeper you look into it, the harder it becomes to tell where the truth actually begins. And just when people thought the situation had already reached its peak, the narrative took another sharp turn. Because now, the conversation online was no longer just about rumors, it was about what people believed had already happened behind closed doors. Social media started running with its own version of events, with many claiming that emotions got involved, boundaries were crossed, and things escalated further than anyone initially admitted. And right in the middle of all this, 50 Cent added even more fuel. He began making even stronger claims, suggesting that whatever was going on between Claressa Shields and Maserati Bud was not just casual interaction. According to him, there was more happening behind the scenes, and he even hinted that he had footage to support what he was saying. Now whether that is true or not, that kind of statement alone is enough to send the internet into overdrive. Because once the idea of proof enters the conversation, everything changes. But despite all of this pressure, Claressa Shields has not backed down. She continues to deny every allegation, making it clear that, from her perspective, none of these claims reflect reality. In fact, when fans began reacting online, some even jokingly praising her, she shut that down immediately, reinforcing that she has never been unfaithful to Papoose. Still, denial alone was not enough to calm the situation. Because behind the scenes, reports started surfacing that Papoose is not convinced. According to insiders, the relationship is now hanging by a thread. And for him, it is not just about the accusations themselves, it is about who is involved. The fact that Maserati Bud was not a stranger, but someone within his circle, adds a completely different layer to the situation. And that is where this starts to feel familiar. Because this is not the first time Papoose has allegedly found himself in a situation where loyalty and close connections collide. For many watching, it almost feels like history repeating itself, another cycle of trust being tested in the worst way possible. But just when it seemed like the focus was entirely on the cheating allegations, Claressa flipped the narrative again. Now, she is no longer just defending herself, she is accusing. According to her, the relationship dynamic was never what it appeared to be publicly. She is now suggesting that Papoose may have been benefiting financially from her, even going as far as claiming that a significant amount of money was taken from her over time. And that changes everything. Because now, this is no longer just about loyalty or betrayal. It becomes about money, control, and intention. She has even hinted at taking legal action to recover what she believes is hers, which pushes this situation out of the realm of online drama and into something far more serious. And with both sides now talking about evidence, receipts, and potential legal consequences, it is clear that this is not slowing down anytime soon. If anything, it is only getting worse. Because when both sides are digging in, making accusations, and preparing to defend themselves publicly and possibly legally, there is no clean ending to a situation like this. Only escalation. And right now, it feels like this story is heading exactly in that direction.